show you how deep the rabbit hole goes?
Like you, be strong to hold the powers of the sun.
Listen to Pavarotti.
Can I be your superhero?
Hello, welcome to The Revealing. I'm your host, Pavarotti, and I'm here to discuss the Idaho 4 case, Idaho 4. And to start off, if you haven't watched the video that I put out last night, I need you to stop this video right now, go back and watch that entire video, then start this video right here. Once again, if you have not watched the video that I did last night, stop this video, go back, watch the video, and then restart right here. It's very important that you do that because I did that video last night, and you'll notice, for those of you that have watched it and for those of you that will watch it, that I did not provide my typical commentary in the opening, and I didn't wrap it in a bow. And I did that for a reason. Because the information that I'm going to be bringing to you from that video into this video is going to be some of the biggest information that anybody has ever put together on the Idaho 4 case. Yes, after this video, once it has time to sink in, because for those of you that haven't followed the case really closely, you're going to have a hard time at first realizing how explosive the information that I'm going to be bringing to you in this video is. And for those of you that have really followed it for a long time, you're going to have an initial brain melt. Your brain is not going to be able to take it at first. It's going to take a minute for it to sink in. If you focus and really listen to what I have to say and apply it to everything, it will sink in and it will open an entire new world of insight for you into what happened on King Road, I assure you. And I'm going to try to be as detailed as I possibly can in this video to back up what I'm saying. Because yes, after this video, once it sinks into everybody's heads, then yes, Bryan Kohberger, if I'm wrong and he doesn't have another attorney, if you are an attorney, then you will be filing a appeal on behalf of Bryan Kohberger once you realize the information in this video that I disclosed to you today. It is that big. So for those of you that have watched the video that I showed yesterday, let me give you a little bit of commentary on it now, because it comes from not just the 2 documents that I showed you, but from several documents. I've gone through and studied every document in this case now. And sticking strictly to, I will go off on a tangent in 19 directions, but sticking strictly to the documents that I'm referring to in yesterday's video, starting with the DoorDash driver, Molly. I went through and showed through her initial statement to law enforcement how her statement was she pulled in front of the King Road house 15 minutes before 4 a.m. when the DoorDash order was delivered. She supposedly couldn't see the number on the house, and her app was telling her to go to the road behind the house to make the delivery. Now, that does line up with what we thought in the beginning. For those of you that have been with this thing the whole time, if you go back to 2022 and you put in directions to 1122 King Road, whatever, King Road, the directions would actually take you behind the King Road residence. They certainly would. So that really corroborates what she's saying as far as that goes. But then she goes on to say in her statement that she pulled behind the King Road residence in that little parking area up there and parked. And then she said she got out and started walking towards the King Road residence. And then she stopped somewhere in there and turned around and walked back to her car, got in, pulled around to the front, made the delivery right at 4 a.m. Now, during that time, she had seen a tan sedan with a white gentlemen with blonde or red spiky hair with a dome light on drive past her. The law enforcement tried to explain it away as, well, that was an SUV, when she clearly said it was a tan sedan, and with all the other very detailed information she gave, you would have to think that she would know a tan sedan when she seen one. Now, the key part to that was where she parked before she got out and started walking towards the King Road residence, when she parked behind the King Road residence. And you can bet that when she parked and got out and started walking, because she was unsure where she was going, her taillights would have still been on. Then when you cross-reference that with the statement from Jacob Tisdale of what they did that evening, and you follow the path, they made all those trips exactly the way they say suspect vehicle did around the King Road neighborhood. But on their last pass, as he was going around the corner of the Queen Road apartments, right where Molly's vehicle would have been parked with the taillights on, he put in his report that he had seen a darker vehicle, which in that area they all look dark, with the taillights on as he made that turn. He literally described seeing Molly's vehicle with the taillights on as he makes the turn, which means the statement that Molly says of her walking back and seeing that tan sedan matches up perfectly with Tisdale's statement of when he drove through there. The key is there was no sport utility. The only vehicle that drove through at that time was what they considered to be suspect vehicle. And to Molly, in the lights at night, the vehicle appeared to be tan. Yet we know that vehicle was silver, light silver. And in the infrared video, as it pulls out of the King Road neighborhood, on 1112 King Road camera, then that vehicle would absolutely look bleach white. And we all know that. And I believe that's now I believe that's why Ann Taylor said in court that the vehicle on the camera footage was either white or silver. Silver was the color of the unmarked vehicle, and it most certainly was that vehicle. Now, that was the vehicle that made the passes 330, 337, 356. That wasn't the last vehicle, and I'm going to prove that in this video. So there is still a vehicle that more than likely is a Hyundai Elantra that pulls through on the 404 pass, makes the turn, circles around the apartment. So don't conflate the two. But the bombshell that I'm going to show you in this video is going to prove the first three passes of the Queen Road neighborhood was Tisdale and Rosendahl. I don't know where Rosendahl was when Molly said she seen only one person in the car. That is interesting. I have a theory about that. I'm not going to go into it. I'm going to stick to the facts. But the thing that I'm going to show you in this video is going to blow your mind. And it's how they've confused us since day one. And I'm not even 1,000% sure, folks, that it was done intentionally. I think these guys may be this dumb. Because the report that Tisdale had written was written 2 days after the atrocity on November the 15th. He's remembering back to his night on November the 13th. And I believe that he pulled his body cam and he verified his statement with his body cam footage. So to him, it was true. I firmly believe that. What I'm going to show you in this video, though, is going to blow your mind. It's going to pull it all together. It's unbelievable. Kohberger will absolutely be able to file an appeal on new evidence based on this video. Put your hands over your ears if necessary, because I don't want to blow your brains out your ears. But if you do that, be careful. It could shoot right out your nose. Let's go. Okay, now going back to this report, and again, this is by Jacob Tisdale, and he made this report on November the 15th, 2022 at 1:39, I think this is PM. And narrative. On November 12th, 2022, at about 2100 hours, which I inadvertently put 11 p.m., that everybody pointed out that's actually 9 p.m. Thank you for pointing that out. He began an overtime shift in a plainclothes detail on the University of Idaho campus and related areas. And it goes on to tell what he's doing and the Ford Fusion he was driving. And he says that his detail concluded at 3:52 a.m. Take special note of all of these times in this report. During one of the patrols in this area, while approaching, and by the way, this is where he goes through and they explain in detail that they went the exact route of suspect vehicle around Queen Road Apartments and back out several times. But then he says during one of the patrols in this area, one of the patrols is important because he's going to go on to say he believes it was the last patrol. While approaching the southwest corner of 500 Queen Road, I recall seeing a darker colored vehicle with taillights on. This vehicle was parked facing south on the south side of the parking lot towards the west end. There was a short section of the parking lot which was extended to the west of 500 Queen Road, south of 1122 King Street, which was where the vehicle was. Now, again, here's the Queen Road Apartments, like this. Here's the King Road house. Here's the road behind the Queen Road Apartments and the road that goes down between there. But then there's this little road that cuts back and dead ends right here. If you read Molly's statement, which we did in the last video, she says she parked in front of the King Road residence, drove around to this area and parked, unsure of where she was going. And she got out and she started walking towards the King Road residence before she turned around, went back, got in her car, pulled back in front. And you can imagine if she is unsure of where she's going, she's parked here and she gets out and she starts walking, trying to figure out where to go, her taillights would likely be on. If my calculations are correct, and they are spot on, this last pass that Tesdale is referring to, when he comes around and he says he recalls seeing a darker colored vehicle with the taillights on, he's coming around here and he's literally seeing Molly McMichael's vehicle with the taillights on. In this dark area with the taillights on, that vehicle probably would have looked dark. He's recalling 2 days later. So he's basically corroborating what Molly said in her initial statement. It lines up perfect except for one thing. All of these times that Tesdale is talking about. So each time we patrolled this area, I drove the same route. So he drove the same route around every time. During the final patrol, which to the best of my recollection was between 200 and 300 hours, and I'm sure he was recalling a couple of days later on November 13th, 2022. And then he sees a bunch of stuff around the King Road house. We're going to skip that for now. We'll come back to it later. But when he goes through and he says, upon review of my radio history, I don't think it was a review of his radio history, though. I think what Tesdale did, because it was a couple days later, is I think he pulled up his body cam footage. And he looked at his body cam, and he seen that he had contacted 3 individuals at Taylor Avenue at about 2:55 hours. To the best of my recollection, this was after exiting King Street, after seeing the individuals at King Street. We cleared this contact at 3:32 hours. So this was the Banfield stop that he's talking about. So if you follow what his report is saying, on his last patrol, he's thinking it was at almost 3 o'clock, right where he does the Banfield stop. And that's what's backing it up. And what made me really start digging into this a lot deeper is I seen that the person that had reviewed his statement was none other than Shane Gunderson on November 15th, about 7 hours after he made it. And whenever I see Shane Gunderson, I know there might be some shenanigans involved. And y'all know why I say that for those of you that have followed me for a long time. So as I looked at this deeper, and I look at everything that they say that happened and why they say that it happened that way. And then I waited after I did that video for somebody to point out something. And finally, one of my commenters pointed out that this couldn't be true because there was another stop by Tesdale and Rosendahl at, I believe it was 3:32 at the apartments where they were harassing the frat boy who had stole the sign. And that little confrontation happened from 3:32 to, I believe, 3:38. We're going to verify it before this video is over. Which really got me to thinking, how could all that be possible then? And then I looked at all these times and I went, so after that last stop with the guys over there with the sign, that means they went off duty 4 minutes after that at 3:52. Wow, that's just really weird. It's like everything lined up perfect except for these hours. And then I realized something. If I was to go through, and this is where your head will explode, folks, because you cannot change every camera of everything you know about in this story, the times. Linda Lane was right. 1112 was right. 1320 Linda Lane was right. The FBI went through a report and verified all those times. But if you take what Mr. Tisdale said, he started work at 9 p.m. and then he quit at 3:52. Well, that is how many hours? Let's see, 9 to 10, 10 to 11, 11 to 12, there's 3. That would be 6 hours and 52 minutes of an overtime shift without any lunch or breaks or anything, right? I thought, you know what? That's weird, because you would think they would at least have an 8-hour shift and maybe even, if they don't get comp for a lunch, maybe take one in there. So then I got to thinking, wait a minute. If it was 9 p.m. and Tisdale based everything that he had written in this report off of his body cam, and his body cam for some reason read, say, 3 o'clock, when it should have been reading 4 o'clock, then all of a sudden everything in this entire case just fell into place. Bear with me. If you take 3:52 based off his body cam and you make this 4:52, bear with me, folks, I'm right on this. And then you take his statements of all of his passes around the Queen Road apartments, and his passes, to the best of his recollection, was between 200 and 300 hours on November 13th, 2022. And you realize that he did this report off his body cam, and you realize his body cam is an hour off. Now it makes this 0300. And it makes this 0400, which means the best of his recollection was they made those trips around the Queen Road apartments right during the time that suspect vehicle was making those trips. And since there is no video proof of their vehicle making those trips before 3:31, it turns out that that actually solves this entire case, but I'm not done. Because he says that upon my review of my radio history, I contacted 3 individuals at Taylor Avenue at 2:55 hours. To the best of my recollection, this was after exiting King Street, after seeing the individuals. We cleared this contact at 3:32. Uh-oh. That means the last pass of the 356 vehicle is none other than Gundy or Rosendahl here. And that means that the Banfield stop that we've been looking at for 3 years, perplexed at all those screams we hear, actually happens between 4 and 4:15 a.m. And that means they were done with that contact at 4:32, just in time to go over and harass the guys with the sign at 4:32 to 4:38. And now everything makes perfect sense. They pulled out of the King Street, and the direction that they were facing when they pulled out to harass the Banfield boys was as if they just pulled out of King Street, wasn't it? Their body cam has been off an hour this entire time, and it has threw everybody into a loop. Those 4 guys you see running behind the Banfield cops, that happens at 4 a.m., not 3 a.m. That scream you hear is actually the scream of the atrocity happening at 4 a.m., not 3 a.m. And I'm going to prove it to you as we go through this video. Hold on to your hats. I'm not done. You see, this is where becoming very familiar with the FBI's detailed report of suspect vehicle comes into play. We're going to start right here at the Moscow Police Department a little after 3:20 a.m. on November the 13th, 2022. Rosendahl and Tisdale in their silver Ford Fusion undercover car pull out of the Moscow Police Department on the Southview Avenue heading east. They continue on Southview until it turns into Alice Street, and they continue east until they continue north on Alice Street and then west on Indian Hills. And then they are seen by 3 cameras on Indian Hills at 3:26 a.m. They continue around Indian Hills north until they reach Steiner Avenue, where they turn west. Then they begin to head down Steiner Avenue until they are caught on camera crossing the intersection of Steiner, Main Street, and Louder by the A&W Root Beer at 3:28 a.m. They continue on where they are caught on camera by the Ridge Road apartment video at 3:28 a.m. Then they continue on north on Louder. Then they turn west on Taylor, where they pass Blake Street, and then we see them on the 1320 Linda Lane camera passing Linda Lane at 3:29 a.m. Then they continue on until they get to right here, and we're going to pick up my previous animation with the FBI report down to the second. The FBI report then shows them pull through the King Road neighborhood, and look at this leaked video clip. As we can see the vehicle coming through, very hard to distinguish that one there, but we knew it wasn't the Elantra. And then it comes around the Queen Road apartments making their first pass because this is their patrol. And you can see all of the timestamps where the FBI has it, headlights on trees, and when it's caught on camera. Then it follows the same pass it discussed in the document, and it heads out, not getting a very good view of that car once again, right? Now we know what all of this is about. This is simply a patrol for alcohol and drugs that they do. And as they do this patrol, it turns out they probably weren't stopping anywhere. They were probably just driving really, really slow looking for things. And then they come back up, 338. They go back into the King Road address, and they do that same pass that they said they did in the document. And they come around once again, nice and slow, and look, they got a leaked video of about 2 seconds of the car there. And then they head out in the same direction, and they do basically the same thing. They're just, again, driving really slow because they're on patrol. And then once again, they go down. They're caught on camera here making a U-turn. They come back up following the same patrol route. And then they're caught on camera, and then we never could figure out why they kept stopping here. That's their favorite place to stop, it turns out, as we find out later. And then the DoorDash driver pulls in front of the King Road residence, then pulls behind the King Road residence. And then they go and make another patrol pass, while the DoorDash driver is sitting there, according to her statement, trying to figure out which house is right. And then they come back up where they're going to be caught on camera again. Again, the DoorDash driver is still there. They're in their favorite spot that they go to every single time, as we see later on right here. And they go ahead and they do another one of their little passes, but they turn around before Paradise, go back to their favorite spot. And then they're going to make their last pass through the King Road neighborhood after they sit there for a couple of minutes. And then they're going to actually pull in at 3:56. Here they go one last time. There goes the DoorDash lady walking down towards the King Road residence. They come around. She sees them. He sees their car parked there. Forget the green car. That was an old animation. That was wrong. Here they are leaving out at 3:58. And then they go back on this route, except they don't go down far again. They just turn around. And as they come back up, they're caught at 4 o'clock and 14 seconds. Now watch this time up here. 3:58, 59, 4, up, 3:59, 46, 47, 48, 49. They've dubbed over 15 seconds of video time on 1330 Linda Lane. Why do you think they did that? It offsets the horn beeps on Taylor.
Talk to me. Moscow PD. Hey, is that beer?
What's up?
Is that beer in your hand?
Yeah, I'm 21.
You got your ID on you?
I don't.
Okay.
I'll take it back to my car.
ID on you?
I don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna grab your info just because you got beer and you're walking around with it.
No, it's closed. But
Okay.
sorry.
No, you're good.
I live like right there. I'll take it back if you need.
No, we're just doing alcohol enforcement and running around with beer across the street.
No worries. Sorry about that.
You're good. What's your last name? All right. If you guys all want to stand somewhere in this area, don't run off on me. None of you guys are 21.
Couldn't get her.
Now, why go through all this trouble, you may ask? Well, that's because since the vehicle stopped right here for the Banfield boys at 4:01, that means it cannot be the vehicle that was captured on Ridge Road at 4:01. That means that while they're stopping the Banfield boys, the green Elantra comes south on Linda Lane, turns east onto Taylor, then south onto Louder, then south onto Ridge Road, where it's caught on camera, and it was the green car all along. Now, when you go back and you watch all the deep dives on the Banfield stop, it's interesting because people always use that as one of their determining factors to believe that the crime happened at 3 a.m. instead of 4 a.m. because you can hear screams. And people have tried over and over to correlate the Banfield stop with the Linda Lane footage down to, hearing the horn beep and even the town square bells ringing or whatever. But when you look at what they did to that 1330 Linda Lane footage, and it took me a long time to even catch that as I was watching the clock because I was trying to match up those horn beeps one time myself. And I noticed that the clock went from 3:59 to 4 and then right back to 3:45. And I went, whoa, what is this? So they dubbed out 15 seconds of time, and you can bet that's how they made people think that things didn't correlate and other things did. But when you take the statements of the officers that they made those several passes exactly the way that they described around the King Road neighborhood, and the last pass they said they made right before the Banfield stop. Well, then all you've got to do is correlate the Banfield stop to the actual video on Linda Lane of the passes of the vehicle and the times that they actually passed it, correlate that with the FBI report of the movements of suspect vehicle, And it tells you where the discrepancy is, and it was in the body cam footage of Tisdale and Rosendahl this entire time. Why do you think they leaked the body cam footage of Rosendahl and Tisdale to Law and Crime early in the investigation? Because they didn't want people to know that the crime happened at 4 and not 3. And that has messed so many people up for so long. So many people have tried to change the times of Linda Lane and everything else in this case to match up to the Banfield body cam footage, when in the end, it's the Banfield body cam footage that's off, 1 minute and 7 seconds. That's why when you look at the 1320 Linda Lane footage, it's missing between 3:30 and 4:06. They don't want you to see the Banfield police car driving past Linda Lane on their way to their next stop, which is at the apartments where they get the frat guy with the sign. And once you take and consider everything and the time they say they got off that night, all you got to do is add the hour and 7 minutes to it, and everything works out perfect. And then you have to go right back to that document, though, that I kind of glazed over in the beginning, and really understand what it says now that you know the real times that they were pulling through there. You see, that was Tisdale and Rosendahl pulling through at 3:56. They went past possibly the DoorDash driver with several other people as well. But now that you know that really was them, and as they pulled out, then the Banfield stop happened. Let's go back and revisit what Tisdale and Rosendahl actually said they had seen at the King Road residence, now that we know it was at 3:57, not 2:57 when they claimed. As we traveled north on the west side of the apartment complex, remember, Queen Road is the 2 apartments. This is north, south, east, and west. So as we traveled north on the west side of the apartment complex, north on the west side. So as he comes around and he's going this way, what did he see? I saw several individuals approaching the residence at 1122 King Street. You got to be kidding me. He saw several individuals approaching the residence at 1122 King Street. Now that we know what time he really was coming through there, he sees several individuals approaching the residence. Now, who do we know is approaching the residence at this time? Molly McMichael, in her statement, says she's approaching it at this time. But not only her and several individuals. Several means more than 2, y'all. During this detail, I was looking for alcoholic beverages, open alcoholic containers. Why does it do that to me? Alcoholic containers and individuals who appeared to be intoxicated. So the people that he's seen, I guess, didn't look intoxicated. I observed the individuals as I drove past, but did not see any reason to contact them for our related patrol. So he literally is seeing the unalivers walk to the King Road address, several of them, right at the time the crime happened, but he didn't see any reason to contact him for their related patrol. Why do you think they wouldn't want this to be known? I recall my view of the individuals being obstructed by vehicles and brush on the east side of the parking lot for 1122 King Street. So again, what is he saying? He's coming down the road right here. Let's get a clear spot, all right? There's a clear spot. So here's the house on King Road. Here's their little parking lot out in front of their house. Here's Queen Street. And here is the road that goes behind the Queen Road apartments right here. Boom, boom. So that means he's driving down this road. And he's about right here, and he sees people in this parking lot, just like he said, by the east side of the parking lot. So he couldn't see them because he obstructed vehicles and brush on the east side of the parking lot. So they're coming through, but these vehicles parked on the side here and all this little brush makes it hard for him to see them. The individuals were walking close to a vehicle which was parked in the northeast corner of the lot. Northeast. So they were walking close to a vehicle right here. Again, the individuals were walking close to a vehicle which was parked in the northeast corner of the lot. As I turned onto Queen Road and traveled west, I continued to view the individuals. So he's staring at them as they're going in. They didn't care. From my recollection, there were at least 2 individuals, possibly 3. I recall one of the individuals having blonde hair. I do not recall exactly how many individuals were there, what they were wearing, or any other details as I quickly looked for beverages in their hands and whether they were staggering from intoxication. So apparently they were pretty steady and they didn't have beverages in their hands. So since we made several patrols through the area, I cannot say 100% confidence I saw the vehicle on the same pass as I saw the individuals. I can't say that I saw the vehicle on the same pass as I saw the individuals. But upon review of my radio history, I contacted 3 individuals at Taylor Avenue at about, we know now this is 401. To the best of my recollection, this was after exiting King Street after seeing the individuals at 1122 King Street. We cleared this contract at try 455. All right, so when we go back up here, though, he's seen at least 2, possibly 3 individuals. One of them had blonde hair. Well, we know that Molly doesn't have blonde hair. So who does she hang out with? Because what he's describing is what Molly described her doing in her statement, walking towards the King Road residence as she's seen that vehicle. But it turns out it wasn't just Molly. It was Molly and at least 2 other people. Maybe more than that. But one of them had blonde hair. Your minds are immediately going to go to Dylan and Bethany. But I think there's somebody else with blonde hair that Molly knows real well that makes a more likely candidate. By the time I'm done with this, that Ellensburg, Washington connection, if y'all watched that video, is going to be the key to the whole case. But I can tell you now, irrefutably, that the vehicle that made the first 3 passes around the King Road residence was none other than Tesdale and Rosie in the unmarked car. I can also tell you with all confidence that the vehicle that was captured on camera on Ridge Road was the green Elantra. That leaves the vehicle that passed the King Road residence starting at 404 and speeding out of there at 420. See, that one is a totally different vehicle than the other ones. Now, it is quite possible that that vehicle could have been Brian Kohberger's. Because of the route that I told you Kohberger took to Wawa would put him entering that neighborhood right at 404. It's quite possible. But it's more, I'm just going to tell you right now, I found docs in here that's going to prove that that wasn't Brian Kohberger's car either. In fact, I found docs in these docs that proves what car that was and why that Ellensburg connection is going to be so important and why I firmly believe the blonde-haired lady that Tesdale had seen was none other than that Miss Braun. It's coming to you, and it's coming to you hard. Please like and subscribe to this channel. Post your comments, thoughts, criticisms. Till next time, file that appeal, Kohberger. Pavarotti's out.
Oh, gonna give it a shot. Only one of me to shield you all from